Good morning. We're glad you all are here.
Good morning, everyone. If you will be sure to read the screen, we are asking something of you right off the bat. Just casually open your camera roll and don't think about this too hard, and just select the first photo that kind of piques your interest or makes you smile this morning. And just stick with that, because I could go down a rabbit hole back to 2008, according to my phone, on choosing pictures. So just open your camera roll and hit something. Oh, okay. Once we delay for a couple of minutes to allow people to enter into the workshop this morning, probably the best way to share your photo this morning is just to hold your camera sideways, and we will be leaning in so we can see each other's pictures, especially if you have a Zoom background. Be sure that you have your camera in front of you so it won't blend into the green screen. Oh, there's so, okay. And the best way to view everyone in the gallery this morning is to go to your view option up in the right-hand corner of the screen. And if you click on that, and if you do side-by-side gallery, then you'll be able to scroll through and see everyone's picture. And of course, I'm like the last one to choose a picture this morning. Oh, I'm going to go with this. Because this what?
Can we stop sharing screen for a minute so we can see everybody's?
Good morning. There's everybody. Hello, hello, hello. And there are a few of you, if you would start your video, because this workshop this morning is all about photos. Okay. Some very nice moments in time.
Nicole and I are both on mountains.
So if you want to unmute and just make a comment this morning, definitely see mountains, animals. Mine is my first COVID shot because I really felt like that was a game changer in my life this year. Randy, what? I can't quite make it.
Yeah. It was a little girl I had in my class 2 years ago, and she just came up to me at dismissal yesterday and handed this to me, and it was a little flamingo she drew, and then she drew a little baby one eating a fish next to it. And so she was one of my favorite students too. So and then she wrote flamingos, so in case I didn't know it was a flamingo, because I'm known as the flamingo man. I love flamingos.
Oh, okay, so that's my history with you right this morning.
Yeah, really, because usually you thought I was just Eeyore.
That is true. So, and I see people making notes in chat that they're having problems with their video and everything, which we certainly understand in this day and age.
Yep.
So, okay. So thank you very much for sharing, and we have connections made already. Sorry, I got to plug my phone back in because I'm so well prepared today. Good morning, everybody. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Deji Duggar, and I am an A+ fellow. And I have been with A+ for it'll be 20 years next year. I was teaching at Briarwood Elementary in Moore when we became an original school with Oklahoma A+ in 2002. And it was about 3 years later that I joined as a fellow. And I currently am in Norman with my good friend Johnny Keel that I see on here. We are gifted resource coordinators for Norman Public Schools. I am at Eisenhower on the east, and Johnny, I'm going to go ahead and say that you are at Truman on the west. But we were actually taught together at Briarwood 20 years ago.
Wow.
So this is, I just love making connections through A+, and I'm going to pass it off to Paige.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Paige Mayhew, and we figured out with A+ for about 16 years now. It doesn't seem possible, but I am a recently retired high school English teacher. I was in public education for 27 years. And during that time, like I said, I was an English teacher, coach. I served as our district language arts and reading coordinator. And I was also a regional coordinator for Oklahoma A+ schools. I was with Norman Public Schools for 20 years and ended up my teaching in public school at Harding Fine Arts. So lots of connections between Norman and Harding and A+. I'm currently teaching English, humanities and art at OCCC and Rose State. And I just finished my associate's degree in photography. So fun things you get to do when you retire and you actually have time for yourself. Yeah, pretty amazing. And then we have one other person who would like to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Rosalynn Wade. It's great to see you all this morning. I'm the program director for A+. I've been around for 19 years, and I am just your Zoom host today. So I'm hanging out and making these two fellows look good as they facilitate. And then we also have a regional coordinator with us from the Tulsa area, Jennifer.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Burris, and my pronouns are she, her, and I am a regional coordinator for schools up in the Tulsa area, but that includes way up to Bartlesville and way east to Poto and everywhere in between. So I'm really excited to be here with you today. I am a former high school math teacher.
Okay. So Paige?
All right. Our conceptual questions for today are, what makes a photograph good? How do images shape our understanding of events, people, and the world around us? And how do our photographs translate into primary sources?
And particularly today, our focus questions are, how do photographers use the language of art and communication? Why and how do photographers apply the art elements and principles of design? How is photography analyzed and understood? How can we use personal devices or tablets in the classroom? How can we use photography in classroom activities? And how can we use photography to record our history to leave as a primary source?
And of course, if you're familiar with Oklahoma A+, you've seen this triple track agenda before, but I can say after many years in education and professional development that I think it's an extremely valuable tool to use anytime you're learning something new or you're in a learning situation. And so as you move through today, you may find yourself on any one of these three tracks. The first one is you're learning the information, it's brand new, you don't really have any background knowledge of the information. Track 2, you may find yourself, hey, I'm kind of familiar with this information, but how can I adapt this for my own classroom? And then track 3, I know this, I use this in my classroom, what can I learn from the way it's being facilitated here? So again, hopefully moving in between these tracks, you will learn something today or in any learning situation.
All right, so we are going to start off this morning with breaking the ice and moving into breakout rooms. And you will be assigned a breakout room with a number. And then the photos, whatever your breakout room number, this is your photo. So if you're breakout room number 1, you're going to be talking about photo number 1. And I think that probably is enough explanation. And what we would like for you to discuss this morning are these ways to analyze a historical photo. Now, if you need to, you can take a screenshot of these discussion questions, but this is a good time to talk about your participant agenda. Everything that we are using, there's a link to PowerPoint. There are all the information in your agenda. So if you have that handy, or maybe just even on a second device, that you can pull up the discussion questions. But when all else fails, take a screenshot or a picture of the questions. So Rosalynn is going to be moving us into the breakout rooms. There are 2 things that I need to tell you about the breakout rooms. Number 1, these are the photos that you need to be discussing. Number 2, you do need a reporter. When we come back from the breakout room, we are going to ask each group to report or talk about, process, whatever verb that you want to use this morning, about what you have discovered about these famous photographs. So Rosalynn, I believe we are probably ready. Well, that was breakout room number 1. I recognize those folks.
Yep.
They're back.
Pop, 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 pop. That's kind of fun to watch, for them to come back in. All right. I'm just going to go in numerical order. So breakout room number 1 reporter, tell us what you discovered this morning. Just unmute yourself and talk, please. Yeah.
Well, we kind of forgot to get a reporter.
Oh,
we forgot that.
and you even had me come in and go back over.
We were so in the picture. Okay,
So see how we are as teachers? We are horrible students.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead.
Thank you, Twyla.
Our picture was had a table with some gauze on it and some ladies in white dresses and caps. So we assumed they were nurses. I'm not really going from the questions, but I'm just doing that. Even a thing. We either came up with could have been the War of 1812, the Spanish War of 1812. listen to me, 1912, or like the World War. Nurses used to have to make their bandages, and I know that was an activity that the women at home used to do. They would make bandages and then send them to the hospitals and things like that, or they'd go to the hospitals, and that was a community service they used to do. So we're thinking one of our group noticed there was a door in the background with a glass window in it. So we're thinking it could have been at a hospital, and there was a gurney. So they were getting the bandages ready for the day's bandage changes. And they might have been teaching the other ones behind them the correct length or the way to do it, or doing it in shifts. Floor 1 was doing it, and then floor 2 would come in, whatever.
Okay.
Did I answer all the questions?
That's good for me. You definitely were in the right time period. So I don't know if you want to how you want to reveal on these pictures or not. But it was the 1918 flu pandemic, and that was a vaccination site. So photo
We
number.
also mentioned that it looked like, Virginia said it looked like the vaccination that we just took.
That's exactly what it was. Exactly. Okay. Breakout room number 2.
Okay, we saw the picture of a lady, a mother, we assume, because there's 2 children kind of hanging on to her. I think this might be the Dust Bowl because that children's book about the Dust Bowl, but I'm not for certain. But we also made connections with 2020 that she looks worried. We thought questions might be, what will I do next? Where will I go from here? Where's dad? She's trying to comfort the children. We couldn't tell if they were boys or girls by the length of their hair. They had on pretty plain clothing, looked like it was soiled. They looked like they were less than 10 years old, but maybe school age, elementary school age. But just a lot of concern, worry lines, just looked very distraught.
Okay. Once again, definitely right on with the time period. It was the Grapes of Wrath. That's a Dorothea Lange photo. And it's a much bigger photograph than what was shared today, just of the mother's face. And as we go further into taking photo tips with Paige, you'll understand some of these choices. So that was Okies in California. So number 3.
So we did the iconic kissing photo. And so what we noticed was it was black and white. So it was older, like sailors is the context. There were tall buildings, so it's a big city. And we noticed that it's in the street. There are no cars, just people, and that they're kissing, which is a public display of affection, which was more unusual at that time. And so it was a celebration of some sort. And then like the who, where, when, why, we put who is the boy and girl kissing, where, New York City, when, the end of the war, the why is the celebrating. Well, what are they doing? They're kissing. So that's all those questions. And then like, what did you gain from this picture that you wouldn't learn anywhere else? We said like emotion and the feeling behind the moment. So it's more immersive than just reading about it in text.
Once again, you guys are doing such a great job at pegging the time periods. This was VJ Day in New York City, and the sailor and the nurse were strangers. And there is a whole nice backstory of how they have caught up and they found these people for a continuation. And breakout room 4.
So we got a pretty tough one. We thought maybe it was taken like at Yosemite because we couldn't really tell because it was black and white. It almost looked like, I mean, there was a lot of shadows. So it was just really hard to pick up on all those little markers. Because there's not a whole lot going on in the picture, we can't really tell when the time period was. And because it's black and white, so it could have been an older picture because it's black and white. Or we were talking about, you know, photography today. People make black and white pictures all the time. So there really wasn't a whole lot. The only who is the photographer. And so we're thinking, somebody mentioned Ansel Adams as a possible photographer. But we just said, if you didn't know that, then you would just think it was somebody who was adventurous, somebody who liked to be outside. Like I said, the what, we said maybe Yosemite. And then when we were talking about when, we were talking about maybe during the day, because you can see that there's clouds. We were trying to zoom in on those back mountains to see if maybe it was like winter time, to see if there was snow. We were trying to get all the little details because there wasn't a whole lot from the picture. But we were saying that what you could gain from this picture is if you were teaching this, you could definitely use this to show if you lived in the city. A lot of those kids have probably never seen mountains or probably never been out that way. So you could definitely use it to show like the different parts of the world.
Great. And once again, spot on with Ansel Adams. And that was the hardest. There was really nothing to work with other than your own previous knowledge. So one of the reasons I selected that was this is April, it's Earth Month, and there's so much discussion about climate and global, and just looking at different places at different time periods around our world is very valuable, especially in this month. So great job. Okay, Paige.
Oh, we only have 4 groups. Oh, I got
Oh, yeah.
distracted.
You're waiting for number 5.
I was waiting for number 5. All right, let me go back.
Okay, and the last photo is the Wright brothers, and as we go through, a lot of taking historical photos is number 1, luck. Number 2, being in the right place at the right time, and we're going to discuss a little bit more later about what makes a photo historical. And so keep all those ideas and thoughts in your head as we go through, and Paige teaches us about taking photos.
All right, so far, we've kind of looked at it from a historical point of view. Now I'm going to ask you to look more from an artistic point of view, right? We have this historical document, but it's also a work of art. So here in a moment, we're going to put you back in your breakout rooms. You'll be in the same breakout room with the same photo. And I'm going to ask you to kind of be an art critic for a few minutes. And you've already done a pretty good job of the description. You've already kind of done step 1. So I'm really going to ask you to move on to steps 2, 3, and 4. Step 2 is just analyzing it. How is this art organized? And I'm going to ask that you, when you come back, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to have to select a reporter again. I'll go ahead and throw that out there right now. You're going to try to use this language. And when I do this with my students, I give them a little cheat sheet. I'm not above that. With these terms on them. These terms, you will also find these questions, or not really questions, but these steps. And there is a little cheat sheet for you on your participants packet, along with the photos. I think it sounds like you guys discovered that. That's great. So if you would, when you come back, kind of formulate your response using this terminology, the elements and principles of design. And if you're an A+ teacher, and you have your A+ teacher's notebook, there's also handouts in there that cover all of this terminology. So you do have that in your handbook. So if you would, in your groups, focus on analysis and what do you notice about it, line, shape, color, etc. And interpretation. How does this artwork make you think or feel? Okay, or what do you think the message might be, right? What is the artist putting out there? And then form a judgment or opinion. Is it good? Is it bad? Do you like it? Do you not like it? And of course, I would ask my students to be able to explain why they like it or they don't like it, which is one of the hard parts, right?
Right.
All right, so Rosalynn is going to break you back into your breakout rooms. And if you would, respond to 2, 3, and 4. Stop.
That's so fun.
It is kind of exciting when they all pop back in. All right, I'm hoping everyone is back and they have a reporter selected. So we're just going to dive into it. Group number 1, again, don't forget to unmute yourself and just share what your observations were.
Okay, so our picture was photo 1, so it was the Spanish flu. And some of the things that we talked about, I'm not really going to group them by 2, 3, and 4. I'm just going to kind of tell you, okay, good. All right, so one of the first things that was noticed is that the table is set kind of at a diagonal that kind of leads your eye to the very back to where the gurney is. We also noticed that there was some poor lighting So there's a good contrast between the black and the white photo. I mean, you really see that really dark in the background, and then almost to the very, very front in the corner, it's very, very bright, very white. We decided that this probably wasn't necessarily art. It wasn't someone making art. It was more just a snapshot of time, just trying to document history, because that was a really big event that happened. Let's see, and forming a, and that's really all that I wrote down. I don't know if that's sufficient, if that,
Yes.
if that 2, 3, and 4. Okay.
Mhm. This is new territory, so that's fine. All right, let's just go on to group 2, photo 2.
Okay, group 2, I was very passionate about, and so they chose me to be the spokesperson. But I, when back in the 70s, when I was in photography, contrast is what everybody looked at, and there is definite black and white here, and we're glad this photo is black and white. If it was color, it would lose so much meaning. But the kids, although mom is providing such a physical help to the children by comforting them, they're not the main subject, and so their lighting is very subdued. The lighting is mainly on her face and on her hand, and gazing into the distance as to what am I going to do next? Where am I going to go? This was a very gray time, so we're glad we see a lot of some gray in there. The lighting really emphasizing her face and hand. And I love the one comment that someone made in our group. She is the kids' only light in their lives. And so that was like, wow, because that's really pulling why she is so bright in this picture. And yeah, that's about it.
Oh, great. All right, great observations. Let's go ahead and move to group 3.
So we have the sailor photo, and that is, we put colors black and white. It is very centered. The perspective, the buildings and the people kind of like lead you to the center. Everything else in the picture is kind of coming to the center because everything else is pushed to the side. We saw that you have the whole body, so it's like the whole moment, not just like part of it. There was a lot of contrast. I know that the photos in black and white, but also like their clothes are black and white, and so the contrast between both of them makes it pop even more. And then what's behind them, we talked about how it's like more grayish, and so it kind of makes it pop because it's like a hard white and black, and then like grayish behind. The texture we kind of struggled with a little bit, but put like the hardness of the buildings and the road around them, and then like the softness of like their clothes in the moment and all of that. And then like thinking and feeling a celebration, happiness, passion, connectivity. So yeah.
Nice, great. Okay. Great observations. And we'll go ahead and talk to group 4, and then we'll come back and talk about everything all together here in a moment. So photo 4.
Yes. In this picture, it's a landscape and a black and white. You know, you can see texture within. You can tell the rocks and the trees and the softness of the clouds in the background. It's really laid out and framed with the rule of thirds. You can see that background was very light and the foreground is very dark, with the focus of the middle really what kind of draws your attention to first. And not a lot of movement in it, but definitely variety if you study it long enough, but it does feel very balanced in proportion. On our interpretation, it made us feel calm. It was kind of a feeling of getting back to nature and away from stress and busyness. And our evaluation is that it was something that was pleasing to the eye, that you might have hanging in your home or something that you would enjoy looking at, not just in a gallery or in a certain situation, but more an everyday enjoyment. That's it.
Right. All right, so I think great observations, and we're going to kind of come back to some of the composition, and you guys have already got a great segue for that. But I want to talk about, how can, sometimes I think as teachers we're like, oh my gosh, we have to put in new vocabulary and focus on two things at once. But how can we start using this terminology, the elements and principles of art in our conversations? How can a teacher include those? So if you want to jump in and respond, you can do it in the chat or just unmute yourself. I think we're a small enough group. Any comments?
I like the rule of thirds, very easy to teach, even to lower elementary grades. And, it's so important in photography or painting.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about some of those tips on how to take a good photograph. And well, focus is kind of rule number one, but really rule number one is the rule of thirds. And for those of you that don't know what that is, we'll talk about that in a moment. Thanks, Randy. Anybody else?
I was thinking on photo number 2, the symbolism of their heads being the weight on her shoulders, and her face just shows that weight of the world of worry. And I feel like you could use symbolism in a lot of your creative writing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And even as a historical document. Yeah, I mean, that's the history of the moment. And as I teach humanities and talk about history, the dates and facts are important, but really that emotion is truly important. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else want to comment?
Well, I was just going to reiterate, keep in mind for our discussion a little bit later about what makes a photo historical.
Mm-hmm.
So you might want to jot down some of these things that you're discovering as we go through.
Okay. All right. So again, be thinking about how to integrate that terminology. We are going to go back up to, all right. And click on here. There we go. This is the model that I use with my secondary students. And we realize, for our itty bitties, as I call them, it might be a little advanced, but as a teacher, you might want to have this background knowledge in your head. I did include maybe a format for analyzing or reflecting on art for our younger students. So that is also in the PowerPoint as well. Just, getting them to talk about what they see and what they think. And right. What are some questions that are left? Yeah. All right. So far, we've concentrated on analyzing other people's photographs. We're going to shift gears here a little bit and talk about how you can help your students or yourselves take some better photographs. Okay, so I kind of narrowed it down to 5 tips because I think 5 is a manageable number. Obviously, you have to decide what your students are ready for. Although I feel better now that Randy said that the rule of thirds can be taught to the younger kids. I always wonder because I know some adults who have trouble understanding the rule of thirds. But there are 4 elements that make a really good photo. Composition, how is the photo put together, right? Kind of what you guys analyzed when you were doing your art criticism. Exposure is so important in a photograph, and some of you commented on that when you were analyzing it. But with our devices today, they do a pretty good job of low light, highlight. They really do a good job of kind of balancing that out for us. The other element, and particularly in the historical photo, is the subject. I mean, what are you taking a picture of? And does it reflect beauty or emotion or both? Okay. And then the all-important timing, right? Timing is everything. Being in the right place at the right time. And we are finding that out more and more with the current events and the use of photography and those becoming primary documents to capture history and how much more of that history we're going to have captured as we move forward. As we go through this PowerPoint, we're going to spend most of our time talking about composition, okay? Because the others are kind of up to the artist, right? So let's talk about tip number 1, and that is the rule of thirds, okay? And for those of you that don't know what the rule of thirds is, here it is. There we go. Defined for you, okay? And like I said, I think along with focus, this is probably one of the most important things that a photographer can learn. But imagine that your frame is sliced into 9 equal segments by 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines. When you are taking the photo, you really want to put the focus or the point of interest where those lines intersect. So if you notice on our bagel here, right, that bagel hole is right on one of those intersections. So it really draws your eye to that bagel, okay? And I know you're all hungry for breakfast now. To help you with this, you may want to turn on your grid lines on your phone or your tablet. Deji is going to demonstrate how to do that in one moment. Okay. A couple more examples here of the elf here. Notice that her eye is on one of those intersections or close to it, and also her 2 hands. So it really kind of balances out the photograph. When you're doing, taking a picture of a person, okay, when you're doing a portrait, it's pretty okay to center the image. But again, you might want to put the eyes on one of those intersections. And over here, notice that our little friend, the dog, okay, his hat is on one of those intersections and he is over to the side, not centered in the photograph. So it does make it a little more interesting because it works on that rule of thirds, okay? And he's got a cute little purple hat on, so can't go wrong.
Poor dog.
So Deji is going to, I'm going to stop share for a moment, and she's going to demonstrate how to switch on the grid lines on your device.
Okay, so hopefully the glare is not so bad. On Apple products, this is, go to your setting app. Yeah. Just poke it like that. There we go. And all you have to do is scroll down to camera. Yeah. Okay. So it's down here underneath music, photos, TV, etc. And all you have to do is camera, and there is a little grid slide button. Yeah, let's see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Turn it on. That's it. And if you are on an Android device, all you need to do is actually open your camera app and is turn on grid under that. So it is just that simple. I think I may have accidentally done this once or twice before, not knowing how valuable it truly is. So turn on your grid, and if anyone has a problem, let me know in chat and we can work it out.
All right. So again, and I think too for our small kids, I think that would be really helpful, even the big kids. Okay. And if they're using iPads in class, you could just do it for them. All right. Tip number 2 I have for you for making some good photographs is fill the frame. And in discussions with some of my elementary partners, I've learned that little kids kind of have trouble with this, and I had no idea. But there are 3 ways you can help them fill the frame. You can focus on one subject, i.e. there's just one subject in your photograph. I'll show you an example of this in a moment. you can embrace negative space. Okay? And again, show you some examples of all of these here in a moment. And be aware of color. How can you use color to make your image better? Okay? Not that you have to. As was said before, lots of people like, whoop, black and white, went too fast. Okay?
Right. And I just want to, I am hoping all of you elementary teachers that have taught the reflection poster contest or anything else about, you give them this nice big piece of paper and then they draw something really teeny tiny just right down the middle and sometimes on the bottom. So I really am hoping that this is going to be the answer to moving from the photograph art to the visual art. So we can keep our fingers crossed and see if this works.
Yeah, like I said, I had no idea this was an issue, but this would be filling the frame with one, focusing on one subject. Also notice that we do have our rule of thirds, right? We have this eye over here. Okay, the eyes are kind of on the two cross points there. Not exact, but close. Okay, so just one subject. And notice it's just a part of the subject too. It doesn't have to be the whole cat. It can zoom in on their face. This is what I was talking about with negative space, right? That you have all of this, if this these words weren't here, this would just be all negative space. It is also out of focus. So that really narrows your vision to our lovely dragonfly here. Also, right, the rule of thirds, the grid is in there for you so you can see it, okay? And if the information wasn't over here, that would be really your main focus is our dragonfly. He was very patient with me. I was trying to hunt him through the fields. Okay? And then this is an example of being aware of color. I think we have this unifying color of blue, these kind of two shades of blue that really pull this together. We also have the use of line, right? The use of lines in here that really make this a kind of an interesting photograph. Okay, so talk to your students about using color and how that can unify a picture. Okay, so fill the frame with something that is thoughtful. Okay. My tip number 3 would be use leading lines. And some of you really kind of caught on to this and talked about this when you were analyzing the photographs from an artistic point of view. Our eyes are drawn, just like over any text, right? Our eyes are drawn along lines. So be thinking about when you're composing your photographs, and we're going to ask you to do this in a few minutes, be thinking about the lines, okay? How are the lines drawing my eyes through the image, okay? And here we have, right, the diagonal lines of his body and the guitar, okay, that kind of pulls your eyes through that image. Here's another example. There are all kinds of leading lines, right? They don't have to be straight, okay? They can be curvy, zigzag, horizontal, vertical, but how can we use those to enhance the photo's composition, okay? This nice kind of curved line of the horse, okay? Kind of pulls us in. The fact that they're facing each other brings us into this photograph, okay? And you also might notice that we have these nice triangular shapes, okay? So the leading lines, okay, kind of take me into tip number 4. Look for these repeating patterns or symmetry, okay? And we saw that in the previous photo. There was a repeating pattern and even some symmetry. Okay, here we go. Repetitive patterns, for some reason, they're just really pleasing to the eye. Whatever that is in our brain that it triggers. So can you find repeating lines or geometric shapes, repeating colors? Okay, sometimes we forget about color. Okay, and so obviously that's kind of what makes this photograph more interesting. Okay, and it breaks rule of thirds a little bit. but it's still interesting. Symmetry in photography just means kind of what it sounds like, right? You could fold this image over on itself and the two sides would be pretty close to the same thing. And so these kind of echo one another. Yes, this is Disney World, Diagon Alley, if you're wondering. But we also have leading lines, right? These leading lines lead us to this dragon that every 15 minutes spits fire. So, right, we have repetition of shapes in the windows as well. So there's kind of a lot going on in one photograph, okay? You have symmetry, repetition, patterns, leading lines, okay? But again, kind of drawing you into this central image of this lovely dragon. Okay. And then tip number 5, and I think this is the one that I think our kids are really good at, really good at. Look at things from a new angle or perspective. And because we have devices that are so mobile, it's pretty easy to do. I mean, you can take your cell phone and take a picture almost anywhere, even a concert, right? And kind of looking at it from a different angle, because most of the time, right, we're eye level, straight on, okay? Although I do think that's changing somewhat because of the use of the cell phone to take pictures. Sometimes we'll do directly overhead, things like that. But this can really make an image much more interesting if you look at it from a different angle, okay? And move closer, move closer. You can really get in and get some lovely details. And like I said, I think this is where our kids will really excel, is in kind of moving in closer, because they're usually not afraid to do that. And right, we get all these patterns here, we get texture, and that's what makes the photo kind of more interesting, right? It could be just a nice flower picture, but we also, if we move in closer and just take a part of it, kind of similar to the cat, right, from the beginning, really kind of changes how the photo feels. And then, of course, you can combine it all, right? You've got looking at something from a new perspective, you know, maybe a small child, this is how they would see the world, but move in closer. And again, maybe take a part of something. But when you move in close, this really works with both people and pets. Kind of getting down on the level of your subject can change how that image is reflected psychologically, right? I mean, we're looking up at this horse and that's giving it power, right? This is a big animal, but we're looking at its nose. So hopefully that takes away some of the fear, okay? So those are my 5 tips. Those 5 tips are also listed in your participants packet. And you might want to kind of keep those handy for our activity that we're about to do. But as with any artistic endeavor, Pablo Picasso, I think, kind of said it well. You learn the rules like a pro, so you can break them like an artist, right? None of these rules are carved in stone, but you can use them to make your photos better.
So, returning back to photos as a primary source. And I am very pleased that photos are becoming more of a well-seen primary source for his history. And just actually having that vision of the picture will take a interment of the Japanese during World War II. If you see a picture rather than just reading an essay, that is going to make it just seem much more real. And with us taking photos, we're going to leave a record of us common people, not just famous people. I am probably more interested in what regular people did on a daily basis. I find that much more interesting than what someone had for dinner that was famous. And also with us as the photographers, we are going to be taking pictures of every section of our society. We, through our camera lens, we're going to be relieving, we will be leaving records of what our life truly. And I hopefully after this, you're going to go back through your camera roll and look at some of your pictures through an eye of a historian. And what we're going to do right now is tell you about our scavenger hunt and about how you are going to be a photographer. These are the tips that Paige just went over. A couple of suggestions if you are in that block, creator's block. Do something that starts with your name, something red, unique perspective, or something you smell. I'm thinking about my lilac bushes in bloom right now, and that would be a great smell picture for me. We are going to be giving you 10 minutes to actually leave, get up and move from this meeting and go somewhere in your environment and take some pictures. If you did not get your grid turned on, once again, please let us know. I think most people did. And so try using the thirds, unique perspective, anything that you wish this morning. And at the end of 10 minutes, we will come back and we will share our photos once again. So at this moment, I'm going to ask you to go to your timer on your phone and set yourself a 10-minute time. Okay, so should we all get our photos ready up for our gallery walk?
Yep.
And I'm going to say, I'm going to cheat because this is a picture of Paige's picture that I have hanging in my room. But you can see how she used her thirds. I thought, very nice. Oh.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
We have a lot of people who went outside.
No, despite it being cold. Oh, I like it.
Oh.
Nice, Nicole. Okay.
And I mean, like Donna's it's like a collage. I love that. Oh, Alicia, I love those flowers.
Nature.
Easter candy, yeah. Oh, there's another sunflower. She's got sunflowers in her yard. Amy has a sunflower.
You're bleeding hearts.
Oh, we got somebody's a happy dog. Alyssa's happy dog.
Oh, look at that. And you got in close.
This is actually my fake sunflower in my kitchen.
Is it?
Yeah, they're not real. I wish they were.
Yeah. No one has to know.
Yeah,
that's right.
Lovely.
Oh, go from sweet dog to sweet baby.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, Alicia.
Phone keeps turning off.
Nice.
Oh, like it,
Nicole's
Alicia.
composition there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, well.
Nice. Texture in that one, Nicole.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, very nice, Nicole.
Yeah.
I think Nicole's got a new hobby if she didn't already have one.
Alicia's acorns?
Mm-hmm. And I think Alicia makes a good point there that even the simplest of subject matter, right, can be a great photo. Yeah. Oh, got your red buds, Randy? I think that's a red bud. Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Nicole, yep. I hear you, Nicole. It never seems like there's enough time to do it. All right, well, let's wrap this up. Maybe. Okay. Oh, we did that.
Right. And this document, we just felt like it's so timely to also bring this part of photography in with our students in social media. I'm not going to go over this. This is just a valuable piece for you to discuss in your classroom. Even with the little ones, they need to know real, not real, all kinds of things that we need to talk to them about. So when you have time, please read this and include that in your lesson.
And as I was saying earlier, there's a link to this very PowerPoint in your participants packet. So you will have this PowerPoint. But again, yeah, I think messaging and what, you're taking in as part of the media, it used to even surprise me with my high school kids that, well, they're just selling a car in that ad. Well, no, they're selling a way of life. So there's some other things there, I think, that we need to make our kids really aware of.
Right.
We do have kind of some long lists here of suggestions for you on how to use photography. We did the photo scavenger hunt. Give them choices, or you can focus it more bug's eye view. I think someone said that they wanted to get down and that their kids get down in the dirt. Create a photo book of things that begins with certain letters or shapes. Looking at this photo essay, I saw a geometry photo essay, looking at examples of photo essays. So again, some more activity ideas. And again, these are all, here's that individual steps on plant growth. It's springtime. It's, I know a lot of life cycle units are going on.
Right.
They could really capture some life cycle units. Okay. Again, using it to define terminology, right? I think someone said that they had their students go out and take shapes. I know Deji did simple machines, finding examples of things that you're already talking about in your classroom.
And I just thought of another very prominent science standard, shadows. So shadows would be great to include on this that didn't think about until just now.
And feel free, if you have any ideas, jot those down in the chat room. That'd be great. Okay. Also, if you have any ideas on how to share photographs, we did it the kind of more low-tech way today by just, holding them up to your camera. But what are some ways that you would share some photographs in your classroom? Okay, and feel free to jot those in the chat room. I know for me right now, we're using Canvas. So obviously you can turn in a photo in Canvas. Okay. What about you, Deji?
We use Seesaw, same thing. It's just so easy. The kids actually were uploading photos before we got to teaching them to upload photos. So it's not a problem.
And I know that you do run into some problems trying to email large images. That gets a little tricky depending on, what mail format you're using. But you could do a Google Doc and have people put their photograph in it.
Yes.
You could use Google Slides and everyone.
Google Classroom. I mean, it's, yeah.
Alyssa mentioned Class Dojo as well.
Yes.
And we have had some very creative participants sharing documents that have their photos that they took today, just right in the chat by attaching those files or links.
So again, and someone has mentioned using the digital frames and taking pictures of their students' work that way, or just putting their students' pictures that they've taken and it just scrolls. And great way, maybe someday when we're all back together in the classroom, to display students' work. Excuse me.
Allie mentioned the idea of connecting this to SEL, showing emotions, relating and understanding emotions, what makes us happy, Johnny mentioned photographing examples of figurative language. That's another great idea.
All those are wonderful.
I think timely right now, advocacy. And of course, as an English teacher, I spent half my life teaching the persuasive essay. So maybe this is a way to help students understand what persuasion or argumentation is, if they, leading into writing the essay. Okay. I've been using a picture a day for a morning meeting, Alyssa.
Great thought.
Yep. Okay. And so hopefully you're putting those other suggestions in the chat. Okay. And I know particularly our youngest students, they do a lot of work with color and identifying that color. So fast way to assess whether they know which color is which. We had fun with Symmetry using Google Docs, and there's a link to that. Thanks, Angela. Let's see, where are we in time? I'm not going to take the full time to go through this, but this was an assignment that my students did. And granted, my students are, they're freshmen in college, but even the youngest students could do this. A photo essay is just a series of photos, right? 7 to 10 original photos that are focused around a topic. My students, we were in the middle of the pandemic, and so their job was to photograph their experience during the pandemic. And we studied the photos of Benny Lamb. I'm not gonna click, there's a link to his photographs here. So we did talk about these in class, and he takes photographs directly overhead. And this was how my student interpreted. He gave me permission to share this. He was so cute. But notice that there's a photograph and narration, right? So they have to do both. It is kind of a writing and a photography exercise, but he did his whole series directly overhead. I was just so impressed, right? And this again is in the PowerPoint, and I do encourage you to go back and look at it, just because he did such a great job. There is a list of photo contests for kids. This is also in your participants packet. If you're interested in going that route, might be fun if you particularly have some competitive kiddos. And then these resources are also in your participants packet, as well as this PowerPoint. And this is Deji and my contact information. If you have any questions at any time, feel free to contact us and we'll be glad to chat with you about that. You can find your reflection form here. And if you can use your camera to scan the QR code. Okay.
And please, I'm just encouraging you to bring in photos to your classroom. The photo a day sounds like a brilliant way. But then to start including your students' work as the photos also. And as we said earlier, you never know when you are going to be taking that $1 million photo. So just keep on clicking.
If anybody has questions now, we're going to be hanging out for a few minutes, so you can feel free to talk to us. LaDonna, if you take your phone, your telephone, and point it at that QR code, point your camera at the QR code, it should read it and pop up a link. If that doesn't work, I believe the actual link is in the participants guide.
I put it in the chat, but I have to go off my screen. All right. Unless there's any other questions for the group, it's been great having you. And we hope to see you at some more Oklahoma A+ events.
Woo!
This is our last TLC for this year, but due to popular demand, we are going to have TLCs on Saturdays next year as well. So the
Yay.
next big A+ event is Not Your Average Conference on June 8th. We hope that you will join us that day.
In person or virtually.
That's right. You have your choice. We will have Mark Woods with formerly Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Sherry Sturman from Crayola, and Wendy Rodrigue is the Blue Dog artist George Rodrigue's widow, and specializes in storytelling around George's paintings. So we will have some original paintings as well as her storytelling. You all enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.